Hello, today I'm going to talk about an update to Jackrabbit's dollar cost averaging module. The dollar cost averaging module now supports both long positions and genuine short positions. You can now dollar cost average a short position into a profit. Now, if you have the old version, you won't see it. You do not have to update the old version if you want to use only a long position. But if you want to select the updated abilities, then you need to make sure you update this version. That does mean you will have to remove it from your chart and reapply it. And if you're using a linkage system like this, then you will have to reapply all of the links. Now you can support long positions, and as you can see, if I switch it to long, this chart is identical to this chart. So you do not need to update it for your long positions. Only for your short positions, and the likelihood of that right now is going to be very limited, since at this point there's only one exchange that I know of that actually supports dollar cost averaging of a genuine short, and that is FTX, both the .com version and the US version. 3C Exchange does not support a genuine short, in that you can add to the position through a strategy. The only time you can add to a short on 3 commas or a 3C exchange is through its own internal dollar cost averaging. And of course, Crypto Hopper does not support that at all, as it doesn't support genuine shorts at any level. I'm not sure about Profit Trailer, and no matter what, you need to carefully test this new algorithm. Since I can't find any genuine historical data on the performance of dollar cost averaging for shorts, I'm going to consider this entire module an alpha. It is literally breaking new ground. Okay, I've zoomed it in, and this is the short version. As I said, you need to be careful with shorting with dollar cost averaging. As you can see, it has no upper limit to your price volume. So at a minimum, you need to double your deviation and double your take profit. The biggest problem you're going to have is margin fees are going to add to your expense ratio for what you're getting into for your asset. For example, if you have a margin fee of 0.5% per trade, then you need to factor that in, so that if you hold something for several days, 0.5% doesn't sound like much until you start racking up a week or 2 weeks in a trade, and that can be bad for you. So you need to think about your percentages carefully and really plan them. And the best place to start is always double your take profit and your deviation. Unlike a long position that has a bottom of 0, there is no theoretical top to how far a coin can climb. As you can see in this case, looking at this coin. And that is a problem that you're going to run into extensively as you work with shorts. Shorting is a difficult and high-risk situation. You need to make sure you take into account all of the situations that go into shorting. Now this works just like the long version in that you open a short on a buy signal and you close a short on a sell signal. The one thing that is different is, as you can see, the deviation is now up here, not at the bottom as a long position. So your entire situation is now backwards. You make money when your asset loses money, and you lose money when the price of your asset climbs. So it's a whole different paradigm of thinking for your trading, and you need to be aware of how that is going to affect your overall performance. For example, this is the long version. As you can see, same price action completely, but the difference in direction has a huge impact on how well the process is going to work. With dollar cost averaging, you cannot just invert the signals like you would on a traditional MACD, moving average, or any other combination. It is literally a whole different mathematical approach. And you need to test and take careful preparations for how you manage your assets under this kind of a situation. There is no substitute for running a paper trader with a short, or for minimizing the amount you risk. Keep yourself in close check, because this can go bad very quickly. One of the worst coins to implement this on is Bitcoin. Do not short Bitcoin unless you know exactly what you are doing. It can go bad very quickly. You need to be aware of that. Let's go back to the 1 hour chart, where we can get a bigger picture of the last several months. Shorting a coin that you are not thoroughly versed on can be disastrous. Pay careful attention to all of the details. Even after you've checked everything twice, go back and check it again. This can be a disaster. Remember, you're not just going to lose your whole coin if something goes wrong. Most exchanges that deal with shorting have an auto deleveraging protocol, which means if you collapse one single trade, you will liquidate your entire account. Let me repeat that. If one single trade collapses, your entire account will be liquidated. So you must make absolutely sure you take your time. And in this case, I've got the long version here set up, which feeds off of the MACD signal line. I did the exact same thing with the short version. I pulled in the MACD signal line. So I'm looking at literally the long and short of a coin simultaneously. You must absolutely be very aware of how difficult this process is. You can lose your entire account and budget on one single wrong trade. Do not underestimate the risks here. I cannot emphasize the importance of high-quality coins, and I do not, under any circumstances, recommend trading Bitcoin unless you are very, very adept in the risks of shorting to begin with. If you short this coin with a leverage and you don't plan for your budget properly, you will wreck your entire portfolio. You need to be very careful. And I do mean very careful. I cannot emphasize that enough. Looking back at the history, you can see things can go bad very, very quickly. Be prepared for a very careful and meticulous trading paradigm that has to really and cautiously develop carefully. So as we see here, looking back and forth at the various trades, you can see the difference between the long version and the short version very clearly. The red line, of course, being a deviation. The long version, the deviation is always the low number. On a short version, the deviation is always the high number. So be sure you carefully watch the direction. Double check everything before you make your signals. Even if it means doing what I'm doing here, putting both versions on the same screen so you can watch them simultaneously, and making sure your long alerts go against this version and your short alerts go against this version. You will notice the difference when you go to make an alert. The PCs might be a little more difficult, but on the laptops, on the tablets and phones, you'll clearly see the difference. You'll see the word short or long in the settings when you pick it. Same thing here, you'll see whether or not you've actually updated the module, if you have one loaded on the screen. Be sure you always double check your direction. Here you open a long, here you open a short. Here you close a long, and let's see if we can find a marker. Here you close the short. Now most platforms will allow you to run both simultaneously. So in this particular case, this here is based upon a $100 budget. Here, in order to make the same functions work, you need at least a $200 budget. So if you want to trade this one single coin in both directions, you need to be prepared for at least a $300 budget. And that can be very difficult if you're not prepared for it. If Bitcoin goes through a 30% drop, both sides are going to feel it. Let's move this to a longer duration and actually see the whole market in one complete screen. You can see the entire Black Thursday drop and the recovery process. You can see it here. You can see racked up and accumulated long positions, and you can see short positions are still there. And they actually accumulated well in the past. So you need to be aware of how long a short position can be holding. These margin fees are going to be quite expensive in this point. So it's something you must be aware of. And I'm going to demonstrate just how bad this can get if you're not prepared. Let's take, and I'm going to put the exit position exactly as I have on my long. 11. So basically $111 is my whole budget. Okay, it changed, which means we hit an exit breaker somewhere. And it may not be visible here, but I know it will be visible here. So let's see how this is going to affect. Okay, so here we are, long and short. Okay, backtracking it. Okay, looks like I've actually hit a conundrum where Bitcoin isn't going to pull off one of its usual trades. As you can see, here it got out with a good profit. Here it's still in the trade. Remember that everything is backwards when you are shorting. Okay, let's make sure I got everything set right. Okay, strategy. Okay, let's do strategy. I may need to set this to the 1% to demonstrate it, and I probably will. Even though it's not going to be profitable. And you do have to be aware of that. Not what I want. That's what I want. So let's 1% and my typical 1.5%. Okay, here we go, you see. And as you can see, Bitcoin is, for shorting, not a very good coin. Okay. I'm not going to find one on Bitcoin, so let's go fish around and see if I can find a coin that is not very good quality. And it would be my luck that the market is playing games on me. Okay. All right. Let's go find a weaker coin. I am just not having any luck at all finding a bad coin. And I know I'm not no super genius, so building the perfect algorithm is not possible. I may just have to find one and post it in the support area that shows it. It seems like this thing, regular dollar cost averaging broke here, the long version. But as you can see, the short version, it actually did well. But I do know one way of breaking it. Okay, here you have a failed position and it collapses. And of course you see it doing a lot of profits along the way for shorts. So this, it looks like this will easily make up the loss here. But nonetheless, be aware that on $100, the loss that this suffers could be quite extreme. And it might take you a long time to recover. So you need to pay attention to your losses compared to your wins. And this actually looks like it's doing very good. But then it takes another loss here. And another loss here. That could be problematic. So if you're using traditional dollar cost averaging, while it is quite capable of a large number of profits, it is also quite capable of more losses than you might be prepared to deal with. Let's double this. Let's double this. And let's increase this to make sure we have enough to handle the margin account fees, the profits, and any legitimate slippage. And there you go. It does quite nicely, actually. So if you have the risk for it and you have the budget, this can do very well. But don't shortchange yourself on actually testing this carefully. I emphasize, testing is everything. So basically, double your exit position, double your deviation, double your take profit, and you will be in a better position with shorting than by following the same processes. So I'm actually going to double my take profit. I normally use 1.5. For shorting, I'm going to use 3. Now let's take a look at the chart and see how well it looks. As you can see, it does quite nice. But understand the risks. The risks here are easily calculable. The risks here are extreme, especially if you use leverage. This could do well, but with leverage, this could be a nightmare to manage. Don't underestimate just how quickly this can go bad. Test, analyze, and repeat. Check everything carefully. And you can use the market in both directions at the same time. Don't underestimate just how quickly this can go from good to bad. So double everything for your shorts that you use in your longs, and you should be able to do very well. But look at the markers, count them. Make sure you understand your risks. I cannot emphasize that enough. Make sure you understand the risks. Dealing with a margin account and dealing with liquidation is a nightmare. One mistake, you will lose your entire account. Don't take shortcuts. If it takes you a month to test this, do it. If you're going to use this kind of an algorithm, make sure you understand every single situation you could run into. Until next time.